It's not a game, it's a wrestling.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So glad to see you guys again. In today's video, I'm finally going to be discussing why I quit my job and left Korea and came back to America. Now, it's been a little over 2 months since I've been back, and I've never actually formally said something on my channel that I was leaving Korea and that I'll be quitting my job. And I'm sure that's quite strange to some of you who subscribe to my channel because you like my Korea content, and some of you have been watching my channel for the past year plus. So I want to say thank you guys for that. So I did think about making a video before I even left, basically discussing why I was planning on leaving, but I decided against it for three main reasons actually. First, I was deadass just totally over the entire thing. I didn't feel like talking about it, to be honest. When you are in such a shit situation and it's just all you want to do is just be done with it and move on with it and don't even want to talk about it. So that was basically what happened. I was just I was so glad to be finally over with it that I didn't even feel like dedicating a whole video, setting up lights, setting up camera just to discuss it. The next reason is that I didn't really want to give it a wrong impression about my time here. I actually quite enjoyed living in Korea and teaching. Teaching was my dream job, and I've always wanted to do it, and I've been thinking for a long time about going back and living in Korea after I studied abroad. So don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed living there. It was a nice time. So I didn't want to make this video trashing Korea like many people do. Be oh, it was bad, it was shit, just to kind of get views and get content. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great content. It'll bring you views, but I don't know. I didn't want to attract that kind of attention. So that was a big reason why I didn't do it. And then finally, I also didn't want to influence people to not come to Korea, because I've noticed that in some of my past few videos, especially when I talked about Yelp, that, well, I mean, Yelp isn't accepted because it's truly a shit place, but even then, just because you have a bad experience with something doesn't mean everyone else will. So I feel making such a strong case as for why you didn't like something can kind of deter people, and I don't really want to do that, because again, something that sucked for me could be great for you. I'm so glad that I went. I'm so glad that even though I watch people talking about how they didn't like Korea, that I still went and I enjoyed it. So I don't want to negatively influence someone. So just some background. I came to Korea in November 2019, right before the pandemic started. So for that whole year or so, it was just same thing. You deal with loneliness, you deal with not really having a strong social network, but then you get over it, you become comfortable. Eventually I resigned. So it's not really much to talk about my first year. It's really the second year, I guess, or yeah, it's really after the first year that that shit was really starting to get kind of annoying. Actually, 2021 started out pretty well. I went into the new year pretty happy, pretty optimistic. My contract had ended at the beginning of December, and I decided to extend my contract with my school for another, for every 3 or 6 months going forward, because pandemic shit, and you didn't really know what things were going to be in the next few months. So I figured what, I have a place, I have stability, I like my job, so it's why rock the boat too much. So I was okay, I'll stay here for the foreseeable future. It was fine with me. I wasn't thinking much about it. I was also practicing Korean more, so that's where those lyric videos came from that I did for Evanescence, and I believe Lana Del Rey was maybe in there or something, or Taylor Swift or something. So springtime comes, still doing quite well. I find it funny looking back. I actually had to look back at my old videos to kind of see what my headspace was in at the time I made those videos. And actually, I released a video around this time called how I avoid staying miserable in Korea, which is pretty strange, because a few weeks after that shit really took a nosedive. 2021 saw something really interesting, where it's for some reason the xenophobia and the blame for foreigners for coronavirus really skyrocketed for some reason. And in 2021, that's when people really started to kind of look at us funny, and the government got really bold and was talking about, oh, foreigners need to get vaccinated. I did that vlog video about that. You can take a look at that somewhere over here, where they mandated foreigners to get vaccinated regardless of anything. Mind you, by this time we had been in the country for a good maybe year or so without being able to leave because of lockdown, and we're being told that we have to get mandatory testing. Meanwhile, people who actually are Korean be running up and down the country, talking, doing everything, and meanwhile we foreigners are just talking to each other and just going to Seoul and coming back. So it was so that was really, really annoying. That actually hit our morale at our school, the foreigners, and I know foreigners in general, that hit our morale quite a bit. Sort of this growing feeling that people didn't want you in their country, which is kind of insane, because it's I mean, I guess, but it's not that deep because it's like you guys. So I'll give you an example of like the headlines, like the fucking shit was going on. There'll be like an article in the news talking about like a cluster infection, a cluster breakout that happened. It'll be like in a bar, and then it'll say, oh, if 20 people got coronavirus from hanging out at this bar on a Saturday, the headline would go, 6 foreigners got infected with coronavirus. And then you read the entire article, and it talks about the foreigners, like where they came from, and la 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 la. And then right at the last sentence, it'll be like 14 also Koreans also were infected, and that's all it would say. So literally they would write an entire headline, and they would try to build this narrative, and they purposely did this. They built a narrative where it's like foreigners were the one bringing coronavirus and spreading it, which is not the case, because like even statistically it doesn't make sense, but that was the narrative, and that's what they were running with. And unfortunately, like, it spread to our school and our town. Whenever those outbreaks would happen, our boss would be like, oh, like, she would talk to the English teachers, specifically the foreigners. She'd be like, oh, did anyone go to this area because this breakout happened? So did any of you go to like Itaewon or whatever? And then we're like, bro, like, no. And even if we did you ask the Koreans? Did you ask like the other Korean teachers? Did you ask the parents? Did you ask anyone else except for us? Like, what the fuck? Like, it was so like xenophobic. It was insane, and it just kept happening, and no one was seeing how like this was fucked up, and not how like we shouldn't be put through this, and it's ridiculous. My boss would say, oh, the parents are worried, like it's like, oh, like I know they're being crazy, they're being silly, but they're just worried. I'm just like, well, you have to stick up for us. You have to tell them like, yo, like they're what are you talking about? Like, it's like you're literally worried about the teachers, but meanwhile you're dipping and diving all throughout Korea. You're flying to Jeju, you're flying to this place, you're flying to this place, and you blame, like, come on. It was just ridiculous. This is also around the time, by the way, where I start taking my practicing for my driver's license, and I keep failing my test. So a lot of bad things are kind of happening at the same time and during the springtime. But I'm gonna tell you guys something, and maybe I put this as my title about why I left Korea. But the real, how should I say, the real crux, the real like meat and potatoes of why I left, swear to God, started in May. My coworkers and I have noticed that like in Korea there's like this strange relationship to like air conditioning, where it's like, well, rather not to just specifically air conditioning, but like hot and cold. There's this strange relationship. Going into summer, the reluctance to put on the AC is insane. The reluctance to put on the AC is insane. But at any other time, the heat is full blasting. Like the heat is full throttle blasting. I'm talking about if it's dead winter, you come on the bus with your coat on, you have to take your coat off because the heat is blasting so hot. But in the summertime, you get on the bus, it's so fucking hot, and there's no AC on that you have to, like, you're sweating, you're literally suffocating. Any foreigner probably who knows that, like, when they go to Korea during, like, when the seasons start changing, like, you gotta gear up, because this is gonna be some nonsense. It's gonna be some bullshit. They're gonna do some bullshit with the aircon. Typically what happens is, in our apartment buildings, the apartments start getting the AC kind of late. Like, it'll start, for example, getting hot around beginning of May, and we see the aircons turn on, like, end of May, beginning of June, which is ridiculous because like you can see it getting hot. But anyway, so in our school, it was a multi-use facility. Like, it was a multi-use building. We had the 5th floor of the building, which was our school, and then the rest of the other floors of the building were other businesses, like cafes and like what have you. And then, as I said before, in May is when it starts to get kind of hot. What always happens every fucking summer, it starts peaking up 70 degrees, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77. Not too bad, alright? Outside is like, it's not too hot at this time, it's fine. But the thing is, the inside gets kind of warm. Like the heat like gets trapped inside of the buildings. So yes, when you go outside, it's not that hot, but inside it's quite stuffy. So you need to this is when you need to start turning the fan on. So this would always happen where it's like and then plus the kids come into the building. When the kids come in and they're running around and there's so many kids in the room, it raises the temperature quite a bit. That's why even in winter, like when the kids are in the school, you don't really need the heat on because it's warm enough. But when the kids are not there and we have to do Zoom classes only, it gets really fucking cold because there's like no body heat. So that's what happens in summer basically. It gets really hot. Every summer without fail, we bring up to our boss, when are they going to turn the AC on? Because it's getting quite hot. Like, the kids are coming in, it's getting quite hot. We're like sweating as we're teaching. When are they going to turn the AC on? They're like, oh, like, you know, it's not really summer yet. Like, what do you mean? It's not that hot. Just use the fan, la 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 la. And we're like, I mean, okay, but it is kind of hot though. It's pretty freaking hot. Like, if you're in here in the class and the kids are playing, it's pretty hot. So when are they going to turn the ACs on? They're like, okay, like, we'll talk to the building manager. Building manager ducks and dodges. Building manager says, Building manager says, oh, the AC is working. What are you talking about? The AC works fine. You can turn it on now. Building manager says, oh no, we turn the AC on like around 1 or 2 o'clock when the kids start coming in so we can save money. Building manager says AC is not working right now, so we gotta fix it. A guy's gonna come clean it out, whatever. So we get the run around. Oh, it'll be on Monday. Oh, it'll be on Tuesday. Oh, it'll be on Wednesday. Wednesday comes. Oh, the guy needs to come fix it. He'll be here on Friday. Friday comes. Oh, the AC has been on this entire time. What are you talking about? We like, no, it's not on. Next Monday comes. It's not hot. What are you talking about? It's not hot. The AC is not, like, I swear to God, what they would do is the AC is at the top of the thing. Like, it's built into the, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like built into the ceiling. What they would do, literally, stand on the desk, reach for the AC at the top, and then try to feel like the air coming through it. And they'll feel like a wisp of air. And they'll be like, oh no, the AC is working. What are you talking about? The building manager says it's working. I can feel air coming. It's working. We're like, bro, we know what AC looks like, and we know what AC is supposed to feel like. If there's AC on, you know that there's AC on. You know what I mean? It's like, like, that's not one of those things where it's like you can't tell this. You know when it's AC on. Like, you know what cold feels like, right? But he would feel. I don't want to go into because I'm getting annoyed anyway. But basically, it was just gaslighting out the wazoo. Gaslighting. And the thing is, I don't know why they did it. I don't know why they kept I don't know why they kept gaslighting us, because the bosses of our school, they could have easily been like, yo, dude, like, you're right, it's kind of warm in here, and plus the kids are coming in, so I'm sure it's stuffy, so like we really need to get down to the bottom of this. But rather than doing that, and rather than saying like, okay, like, it's not our fault, but we're gonna try to do our best, we're gonna try to bring some like more fans in here, we're gonna try la la la, rather than doing that, gaslighting. They were like, what are you talking about? It works. The building manager says he turned it on. La 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 la. So that's when it happened. That's when it fucking happened. Like, basically just a month of just nonsense. And plus, my classroom particularly, like, it was. If you've ever seen my old vlogs, you can see my classroom. It was like the whole side of the wall was all windows, so a lot of sunlight would come in. Even with the curtains down, a lot of heat would come in. So I was sweating. Like, classes start like at 2:45. By 2:45, the kids are done playing and saying, "No, I'm sweating." And I continue sweating until like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and then the AC, like, the temperature goes down enough, and then the AC finally starts to like get like a whisper of cold air, and then you're okay. And then they have the audacity to turn it off at 8 o'clock, knowing that we have class until 9 o'clock. So like from 8 to 9 o'clock, it starts getting warm again. So that's the shit that every single day without fail we have to go through that, and then hope that by the time we got home, the AC was working at home. So this is the shit that we have to deal with. So me, who just came to do my job and teach these fucking kids something, I gotta sweat, because these motherfuckers, I don't know what problem they have. Like, I've heard many types of excuses as to why this is going on, but no solution. I don't give a fuck I need solutions. Eventually, a month in, maybe June or July, the problem gets somewhat resolved. Like, the AC starts working better. Oh no, this is what happened. So he would tell us, the building manager's official statement was, okay, we'll turn on the AC from like 1 o'clock to like 8 o'clock. And we'll do that only if the temperature is at like 77 degrees. 77 degrees. That was their fucking threshold. And he stuck to it. He wasn't lying. He wasn't fucking around when he said that. Like, we literally had to check the weather every single day, and if it was like 76, 75 degrees, we knew we wouldn't get the AC. The AC wouldn't turn on. It would just be fucking hot. And when it hit like 80 degrees, 90 degrees, that's when it was fine. Ironically, when it was like 90 degrees, that's when it was the best. So we would hate whenever it would fall down under 77, because we know that was going to get really hot in the room. As I said, the heat sticks around even though the temperature outside goes down. So that was just ghetto the fuck all the way. Eventually, like, and then even when the requirements were satisfied, the AC also just didn't work. Like, there was issues with it. It also just didn't work. Eventually, it got satisfied. Like, after a month or so, like, for my room, they brought in a new AC, and it was fine. Like, I was cold. It was fine. Other teachers had to deal with the shit like the entire summer, so that was just ghetto all around. But when I tell you, that's actually the reason why I left. That's the reason why I quit my job, because the xenophobia and like the disrespect was one thing, and like having to do like hybrid Zoom classes, which we hated because it was so stupid, was one thing. But like being gaslit over his fucking air conditioning, and being hot in class and being sweaty in class, and sort of being told, like, just being brushed off when you're giving like valid like complaints, That's the shit that like really like sort of like makes you hate working for someone. That's the shit where it's like, you know what, like I don't want to be a part of you. I don't want to make money for you anymore. Like it's done. Like you don't respect me enough to give me air conditioning. Like no, and then you have the audacity to lie to me constantly and gaslight me about it. So it's like that. So that was what really sealed the deal for me. Like I swear to God, the summer, it started to get warm in May, and then by end of May, I told my boss that I was leaving. I swear to God, because I was so fed up. I was so fed up with it. But granted, it was like it happened last year, so like I knew the shit, and the fact that it happened again, and that like they were still in their same tactics and the same bullshit, and then plus all the other stuff going on was just like I can't deal with this anymore. Like I'm done with it. So believe it or not, the AC was the straw that broke the fucking camel's back. In addition to that, like I mentioned, like I hated doing Zoom hybrid classes. We all hated it. So basically, it's exactly as it sounded. Whenever the coronavirus cases like went up, so the theory was, if coronavirus the cases are too high, then all the kids would go to just do Zoom, and that's it. They wouldn't come in. But what ended up happening was that the cases would just stay high, and then kids would come in and no one would care. So what happened with the Zoom classes was, long story short, we had a system where if a student's school had an outbreak, that the kids from that school wouldn't come to our school that day, and they would just do Zoom from home. But what ended up happening was that so many parents would like start abusing that system, where they would just be like, okay, like my kid's doing Zoom today, even though like there's no coronavirus case. Like literally, we've had kids who did Zoom because their stomach was hurting a bit, because they missed the bus to come, because they just came from camping and they were too tired to come to school, or just because they didn't feel like it. So that got really heavily abused, and our boss like literally nothing to like sort of to stop it, despite it being like a massive like inconvenience and a massive like drain for the teachers, because it's miserable teaching like 4 kids, or like however many kids in person, and then also like having to look at the computer to teach kids on Zoom. It's miserable. It's really difficult. But our boss like didn't really care. She didn't really like enforce any sort of policy, so of course parents took advantage of it. So that was also really fucking frustrating. So after I officially like resigned at the end of June, I spent the next few months basically just plotting my next steps. Like it's just like I didn't know what I was gonna do, but I'm not gonna stay at this school. So I knew that I was planning on just doing my last semester, so from like June, July to August, and then just leaving by September. Initially, I had planned on just going to a different school, but basically, long story short, I was like, you know what? I actually got pretty lucky with the school. I got like, despite all the shit, I got pretty lucky because I was paid on time, and because like my apartment was nice. There are many schools who like I won't get paid on time, or like the apartment will be shit, or like it'll be way worse. So I was just like, eventually I just started weighing the pros and the cons, and I was just like, it's not even worth it anymore. Like, plus I'm like missing my friends and my family. Plus like we were still neck deep in coronavirus, like neck fucking deep. Restaurants are still closing at like 10 o'clock. So I was just like, you know what, like I'm over it. Like I'm totally fucking over it. Like it's just like we've done all this lockdown for nothing. Like I don't respect my boss. Like I don't like I like the kids, and but it was just too much. And that was the sad part. That was also like that last 3 months were so miserable, because just like I was so sick of everything. Like I just didn't want to be there anymore. And when I knew that like I had to just leave and stop teaching altogether at the time, was when I just started becoming sick of the kids. That was always something that like, even though like I was annoyed with my boss, or even though I was annoyed with like outside situations, like I always still enjoyed teaching the kids and like being around the kids. But at a certain point, it's just like I didn't care anymore. Like it was just like, get these fucking kids away from me. Like I'm so over it. And that's when I knew like it was game over for this. So that's the story in a nutshell, to be honest. Like there was way more that I was gonna say, but as I said before, like I don't like, it's not really much to talk about. Like it's just like I was over it. Like I was just done with it. The country that I thought I was in, that I came to, and like the school that I thought I came to, was like no longer the same place where, you know, I originally came to. So it was just, I was over it, and like I didn't want to be there anymore. So I left. How do I feel now that I'm back for 2 months? I've been back for 2 months. No regrets whatsoever. I'm like super glad that I came. I still miss my friends. I still miss my students here and there, but like other than that, like I'm so glad that I'm back. Would I do anything differently? Probably not. Like I didn't do, like I tried to live my best life. Like I didn't as I said before, like, it wasn't really like I didn't do it, I didn't mess up or whatever. Like, it was everyone else's shit that was impeding on my happiness. Like, my bosses were getting greedier and they were caring less about just anything, and like the country was just becoming more xenophobic and just sort of like showing that they didn't want us there anymore. So it's just like, you know what, bet to both of you, and I took my ass out. Do I think I'll come back to Korea? I don't see it happening. Do I think that I'll come back to teach in Korea? I don't see it happening. Do I think I'll teach abroad somewhere else one day? I don't see it happening, to be honest. Like, I kind of just don't want to work. I just want to chill out, to be honest. But I don't know, things can change in the future. So yeah, that's the end of my video. I know, kind of like rambly and like kind of just like disorganized, but that's how I think and that's how I feel. If you have any questions about like my time and like just questions about in general, like, you can ask it below in the comments. Like, don't get too crazy. Like, don't write like a paragraph for me to answer, because I'm not doing that. Just like whatever. Like, don't get too crazy. Yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Have a good morning. Have a good rest of the morning, afternoon, evening, nighttime, whatever. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.